The Galactic Senate chamber was buzzing with nervous energy. It wasn't often that the entire Senate was summoned to an emergency session. But today was different, because today the humans had made an announcement, one that no one believed. The High Speaker of the Galactic Senate, an elder Krivan with deep purple scales and piercing golden eyes, brought the chamber to order. The room fell into uneasy silence as the representative from the United Terran Systems stepped forward. He was a tall, composed man named Ambassador David Monroe. His demeanor was calm, his eyes sharp and unyielding. Behind him stood Dr. Lydia Kane, a physicist with a reputation for reckless ambition even among her own species. Monroe cleared his throat, his voice carrying confidently across the vast chamber. "Esteemed members of the Galactic Senate," he began, "humanity has completed an unprecedented scientific project." The chamber remained silent, save for a few curious murmurs. Monroe glanced at his datapad and continued, "We have successfully reignited a dead star." Silence. Then, laughter. It started small, a snort from the Zarlak delegate, a low chuckle from the Vlethan ambassador. Then it grew, full-throated laughter from hundreds of species echoing off the ancient walls of the Senate. Monroe didn't flinch. He simply waited. Finally, the High Speaker raised his hand, and the laughter slowly faded into awkward silence. The Tiervel ambassador, an elderly being with crystalline skin and shimmering eyes, spoke up. "This is absurd," he declared. "Stars cannot be reignited. They collapse, they die, and their energy is dispersed. What you claim is beyond impossible." Monroe's lips twitched into a confident smile. "Humanity has never been particularly fond of impossible," he replied. The project had begun years earlier, an ambitious endeavor born from a desperate need. The Dralon System, once home to a thriving Terran colony, had been rendered uninhabitable when its star, Dralon 7, had collapsed into a dark, inert mass. Without the star's energy, the planets became frozen wastelands, their ecosystems obliterated. Millions had been evacuated, but the loss was devastating, culturally and economically. Humanity refused to accept it. "We'll bring the star back to life," Dr. Lydia Kane had declared to the United Terran Science Directorate. Her colleagues had laughed at her. The concept of stellar reignition was theoretical at best, a pipe dream. But Kane wasn't deterred. "If it's impossible, then we'll just make it possible," she said, her eyes blazing with determination. And so began Project Phoenix. Dr. Kane and her team pushed boundaries no one had dared cross before. They worked tirelessly to study collapsed stars, seeking a way to reintroduce fusion reactions and stabilize them. The answer came from an unexpected source: dark matter manipulation. They theorized that dark matter stabilization fields could create enough pressure and density to reignite the stellar core. When Kane presented the theory to the United Terran Council, many were skeptical. But she looked them in the eye and said, "If we're wrong, we lose nothing. If we're right, we rewrite the laws of physics." The Council gave her the green light. News of Project Phoenix leaked to the wider galaxy, and the response was overwhelmingly negative. The Zelnath coalition called it reckless and dangerous. The Zolath Empire declared it blasphemous to tamper with the natural cycle of stars. The Vlethan Astronomical Society published scathing reports dismissing it as human arrogance. And the Galactic Senate? They laughed. They called it an insult to established science and a waste of resources. Dr. Kane didn't care. She just kept working. The day came when Project Phoenix was finally ready. The Phoenix Array, a massive orbital structure built around Dralon 7, was prepared to activate the dark matter containment field. The entire galaxy was watching. If the experiment failed, the star would collapse further, possibly triggering a massive gravitational implosion. The activation sequence began. Dr. Kane stood at the control console, her eyes locked on the readouts. "Containment field. Stable," announced her chief engineer. "Dark matter density at maximum threshold." Kane took a deep breath. "Initiate fusion ignition." The array hummed with energy. particles whirled into the stellar core, and for a moment, nothing happened. Then, a brilliant flash. The star's core reignited, glowing with a new, fiery life. The entire system flooded with light and warmth as Dralon 7 burned once more. Tears filled Dr. Kane's eyes as she whispered, "We did it." Back in the Senate chamber, the High Speaker struggled to find words. Ambassador Monroe stood firm, his expression calm and unwavering. Dr. Kane stepped forward. "We did not simply reignite a star," she said. "We defied the known limits of physics and created a new field of stellar engineering. The Dralon System lives again." Silence. No one laughed now. One by one, alien delegates lowered their heads, a mixture of disbelief and respect. The Zelnath ambassador spoke, his voice subdued. "This changes everything." Monroe smiled. "We never wanted to prove you wrong," he said. "We just wanted to prove it could be done." The shockwave of disbelief reverberated through the galaxy. Humanity had done the impossible. A dead star, once a cold, dark husk, was alive again. Dralon 7 burned bright in the sky, its light casting new warmth over the frozen wasteland of the Dralon System. And no one was laughing anymore. In the days that followed, the Galactic Senate was in chaos. News networks from every major civilization were broadcasting the rebirth of Dralon 7. The headlines were both awestruck and fearful. "Humanity defies science, a star reborn." The power to resurrect the dead. How safe is this technology? Galactic leaders question the stability of the Dralon star. Governments scrambled to update their scientific models, and some even began questioning the implications for natural cosmic evolution. The Galactic Senate chamber was once again filled to capacity. This time, there was no laughter. The High Speaker's voice wavered as he addressed the assembly. "We gather to discuss the recent Terran scientific achievement," he announced. "The implications of Project Phoenix are vast. We must determine if this technology represents a threat to galactic stability." Ambassador Monroe stood calmly at the center podium, his expression unreadable. One of the most vocal skeptics, Councillor Draven of the Vlethan Coalition, sneered openly. "What gives humanity the right to tamper with natural cosmic processes?" he demanded. Monroe didn't flinch. "With respect, Councillor, we didn't tamper with anything. We simply reignited what had gone cold." Draven hissed, his crystalline scales shimmering with agitation. "That star died. Naturally. Who are you to play gods and resurrect it?" Monroe's eyes hardened. "Who are we?" he repeated. "We're the species that lost a home, the species that refuses to let tragedy stand without a fight. We did not create the star. We simply gave it back what it had lost." Silence. Monroe's tone softened. "The Dralon System was once a thriving colony, a beacon of life. When its star died, we lost everything. We simply refused to give up." Councillor Farsick of the Zelnath, a species known for their meticulous adherence to natural order, raised a cautious claw. "If this technology becomes widespread," he said, "what's to stop humanity from controlling stellar evolution across the galaxy?" A murmur of agreement swept the chamber. Monroe took a deep breath. "Let me be clear," he said. "Humanity has no intention of playing gods. We have no interest in dominating the cosmos. We just wanted to save what was ours." Farsick's bioluminescent eyes glowed softly. "And what if other species want to revive their lost stars? Will humanity grant them the technology, or will you hoard this power?" Monroe glanced at Dr. Kane, who nodded. "If your species suffers the same loss," Monroe replied, "we will help you rebuild." The admission sent shockwaves through the chamber. Some leaders whispered in doubt, but others, those who had experienced tragedy and lost themselves, looked at Monroe with newfound respect. Councillor Rix of the Kaltor Dominion, a species that had lost several colonies to dying stars, stood up. What if humanity were to lead a coalition sharing the knowledge and technology under strict oversight, he suggested. The idea sparked immediate debate. Some saw it as a way to regulate the power responsibly. Others feared giving humanity too much influence. A few worried about what could happen if the technology was used maliciously. Monroe raised a hand to speak. "Humanity is willing to cooperate," he said. "We can establish a joint scientific council, one that includes representatives from every major civilization. We'll share the technology and ensure it is used responsibly." The High Speaker leaned forward. "You would willingly relinquish exclusive control?" Monroe smiled. "We didn't bring the star back to hoard power," he said. "We did it to restore life. If sharing this knowledge means helping others avoid the same loss, then we'll gladly do it." The proposal was met with mixed reactions. Some species saw it as an unprecedented show of trust, a chance to unite in a shared scientific endeavor. Others saw it as humanity gaining too much influence too quickly. In the shadows of the Senate chamber, a group of representatives from rival empires whispered among themselves. "We cannot allow the Terrans to become indispensable," one murmured. "If they control the power to restart stars, they will control everything." A plan was forming. Some species couldn't accept humanity's rise, and they would do whatever it took to shatter that power. While the Senate debated the proposal, a group of covert agents from the Zelnath and Vlethan coalitions infiltrated the Phoenix Array. Their goal was simple: sabotage the project and make sure no one ever dared restart a star again. Dr. Kane received the warning message too late. Explosions ripped through the control modules, and power to the stabilization array fluctuated wildly. In the command center, Kane shouted into the comms, "Seal the core, rebalance the field, now!" One of the engineers called out, "We're losing containment. The core is destabilizing." Monroe's face appeared on the screen, his expression grim. "Status report?" Kane gritted her teeth. "Sabotage. They're trying to collapse the star again." Monroe's jaw tightened. "Can you stop it?" She glanced at the readouts. "If I can get to the primary conduit and manually reroute power, but I'll need cover." Monroe didn't hesitate. "We're on our way." As Monroe and a team of Terran Marines fought their way through the sabotaging agents, Kane pushed deeper into the reactor core. The star's fusion reaction was faltering, its light dimming once more. A Vlethan saboteur fired at Kane, but she ducked behind a console, breathing hard. "You can't play with the forces of the universe," the alien shouted. Kane's response was calm and unwavering. "We're not playing, we're rebuilding." She ducked out, firing a plasma bolt and hitting the saboteur square in the chest. Reaching the conduit, she tore open the access panel, her hands moving with practiced precision. "Almost there," Monroe's voice crackled through the comms. "More hostiles inbound. Hang tight." Finally, Kane rerouted power, and the fusion core stabilized. Dralon 7 burned bright once more, its light radiating through the system. The Phoenix Array held. The star, Dralon 7, burned bright and stable once more. But the damage had been done. The saboteurs from the Zelnath and Vlethan coalitions were either captured or dead, and the investigation was underway. Dr. Kane and Ambassador Monroe stood in the Phoenix Array's control center, still processing the aftermath. Monroe wiped a streak of ash from his face, his uniform scorched from the skirmish. "That was too close," he muttered. Kane looked exhausted, but determined. "They were willing to collapse the star again just to prove us wrong." Monroe nodded grimly. This wasn't about science, it was about power. A high-priority transmission flashed on Monroe's console. He gestured for Kane to join him as he activated it. The High Speaker's face appeared, looking far more worn and weary than usual. "Ambassador Monroe," the speaker said slowly, "we have received disturbing reports of sabotage against your project." Monroe's jaw tightened. "That's putting it lightly. The array almost collapsed the star again." The speaker grimaced. "We have received confessions from captured agents identifying themselves as operatives of the Zelnath and Vlethan coalitions. This sabotage was not sanctioned by their governments, according to official statements." Monroe raised an eyebrow. "And you believe that?" The speaker hesitated. "Officially, yes. Unofficially, the Senate is divided. Some factions believe your technology is too dangerous, and they fear humanity will monopolize stellar engineering. Kane folded her arms. So they decided to make us fail by sabotaging the project? Real mature. The speaker ignored her tone and continued. The Council has called for an immediate session to discuss the implications of the sabotage and the future of Project Phoenix. You are both required to attend. The transmission ended. Monroe glanced at Kane. This is going to be a political nightmare. Kane snorted. When isn't it? The Galactic Senate chamber was once again packed with representatives, and the atmosphere was tense and hostile. The High Speaker brought the chamber to order. We gather to address the attempted sabotage of Project Phoenix, he declared. Evidence confirms that agents from two separate coalitions attempted to destroy the Phoenix array, putting the entire system at risk. Councillor Velith of the Zelnath coalition stood abruptly. These individuals were rogue extremists acting without authorization. We do not condone their actions. Ambassador Monroe remained calm, though his eyes burned with barely contained frustration. They weren't just trying to destroy our project, Monroe said. They were trying to prove us wrong, by force. Councillor Jorak of the Vlethan coalition scoffed. Your actions were reckless from the start. The very concept of stellar reignition is an affront to natural order. Kane's voice cut through the noise like a razor. You'd rather let a system die than let someone else fix the problem. Jorak bristled, his crystalline tendrils flickering with agitation. This technology cannot be trusted in human hands. You have proven yourselves too reckless with powers you don't fully understand. Monroe's face hardened, and he straightened his posture, his tone cutting through the tension like a blade. You're scared. The entire chamber fell silent. He scanned the faces of the gathered delegates. You're scared because we did what you said was impossible. You're scared because we succeeded where your scientists wouldn't even try. He pointed directly at Jorak. You hide behind tradition and fear because it's easier than admitting you were wrong. Jorak snarled, but Monroe didn't stop. If this project had failed, you would have mocked us for our arrogance, but it succeeded, and now you're terrified that humanity is pushing the boundaries of science beyond your control. He turned to the entire chamber. You want to suppress progress because it didn't come from you. And that's not just cowardice, it's hypocrisy. The High Speaker's voice was cautious, but firm. Ambassador Monroe, he said, are you proposing that the Galactic Senate recognize Project Phoenix as a legitimate scientific breakthrough? Monroe nodded without hesitation. Yes, humanity has proved it works. We're willing to share the technology, to cooperate, and ensure safety measures are in place. But we won't be silenced or sabotaged just because some of you don't like being proven wrong. Kane stepped forward. We're not trying to control the galaxy, she said. We're just not afraid to challenge the limits. If anyone else wants to save a dying system, we'll help you. But don't expect us to apologize for daring to do the impossible. The chamber fell into an uneasy silence. One by one, the delegates cast their votes. In favor of recognizing Project Phoenix as a legitimate scientific breakthrough, 72% against, citing safety and ethical concerns, 28%. The result was clear. The High Speaker raised his hands. Project Phoenix is hereby recognized as a viable scientific endeavor. Humanity is granted operational oversight, with additional monitoring from a joint scientific council. A ripple of reluctant applause moved through the chamber. Monroe allowed himself a small, satisfied smile. As the chamber began to disperse, Kane leaned closer to Monroe. We made it through, she whispered. Monroe nodded. Barely. But neither of them noticed the silent exchange between two shadowy figures in the back of the chamber, representatives of the Zelnath and Vlethan coalitions. One of them whispered, if they can restart stars, what else can they do? We cannot allow them to control this power. A plan was already forming, something far more dangerous than sabotage, something that would force humanity's hand, one way or another. The galaxy was watching. Dralon 7 burned brightly in the void, a symbol of human determination and triumph. The scientific community was divided. Some praised the breakthrough, while others remained skeptical and fearful. But the debate wasn't just about science anymore. It was about control. And some factions in the galaxy had no intention of letting humanity hold the keys to stellar reignition. The Phoenix Array had become more than just an engineering marvel. It was proof that humanity could defy the natural order and bring life back to a dead system. As the array continued to stabilize the star, Ambassador Monroe and Dr. Kane stood in the command center, overseeing the final adjustments. Kane grinned as she watched the data stream stabilize. "We did it," she whispered. "Dralon 7 is officially alive and stable. Radiation levels are normal, and the fusion reaction is self-sustaining." Monroe smiled, but his eyes remained vigilant. "Good," he replied. "Now we just have to keep it that way." Back on Earth, celebrations were underway. News channels broadcasted the success of Project Phoenix, lauding Dr. Kane and her team as heroes of science. But Monroe remained cautious. He knew that not everyone was celebrating. Deep within a Vlethan warship, cloaked in the shadow of a distant moon, a group of high-ranking officials gathered. Among them were Councillor Velith of the Zelnath and Councillor Jorak of the Vlethan Coalition. Their conversation was grim and urgent. "We cannot allow humanity to monopolize stellar engineering," Velith growled. "They will become indispensable to every power block in the galaxy." Jorak nodded. "And if they become the sole providers of star reignition, they will wield unquestionable influence." "What do you propose?" Velith asked. Jorak's eyes glittered coldly. "We destroy the Phoenix Array once and for all. Then, we frame the Terrans for attempting to weaponize the technology. It will turn the entire galaxy against them." Velith considered it, his tendrils flickering. "Are you sure it will work?" Jorak smiled. "We have insiders on the Phoenix Array itself. They will shut down containment and collapse the star before anyone can react. The galaxy will see humanity as a threat, and they will be banned from further experiments." The sabotage team moved in under the guise of maintenance engineers, blending seamlessly with the Terran personnel. They bypassed security, planting overload devices on the containment field generators. But one of the engineers noticed a strange discrepancy on his monitor. "Commander, we're getting unusual power surges in the containment field relays." Kane frowned, moving to his station. "That's not normal. Run a diagnostic." Just then, an alert flashed on the screen. "Unauthorized access detected." Monroe's face appeared on the comms. "Kane, we've got sabotage teams on board. Lock down all critical systems. I'm dispatching security to the generator room." Kane nodded. "I'm on it." The saboteurs triggered the overload, causing the containment field to destabilize. The star's core began to flicker, pulses of energy surging unpredictably. Alarms blared across the station as pressure levels spiked. Kane was already on the move, grabbing a toolkit and heading for the main fusion conduit. Monroe's voice echoed in her earpiece. "They're trying to collapse the star again. You need to reinitialize containment." Kane gritted her teeth. "On it. Buy me some time." Monroe and a team of Terran Marines engaged the saboteurs, blaster fire echoing through the array corridors. One of the Vlethan saboteurs yelled, "We won't let you control the stars." Monroe fired, dropping the insurgent, and moved forward. "You're just sore you didn't think of it first," he muttered. The last few saboteurs made a desperate push for the core chamber, but Monroe's team cut them down before they could breach it. Dr. Kane reached the primary fusion conduit, sweat beading on her forehead as she adjusted the control parameters. Pressure stabilizing, containment at 40%. Come on. A sudden explosion rocked the platform, and Kane barely kept her footing. A surviving saboteur, wounded but determined, aimed a plasma pistol at her. "This ends now," he snarled. Kane looked him dead in the eyes, her hand still on the control panel. "Not while I'm breathing." A shot rang out, and the saboteur collapsed, Monroe lowering his sidearm behind him. Kane gave him a wry smile. "Nice timing." "Any time." With a final calibration, she locked down the containment field, and the star's core stabilized. Dralon 7 burned brighter than ever. When the sabotage was revealed to the Senate, Councillor Jorak and Velith denied involvement, claiming the saboteurs acted independently. Ambassador Monroe was not having it. He addressed the chamber with cold fury. This was a deliberate attempt to destroy our achievement and frame us for a catastrophe. We caught your agents red-handed. Don't insult us by pretending it was a rogue act. The chamber fell silent. The High Speaker looked conflicted, but eventually nodded. We will launch a full investigation. Those responsible will face severe repercussions. Monroe nodded sharply. And we will maintain security over the Phoenix Array. If anyone tries to sabotage our work again, we will not hold back. In the aftermath, the galactic community had no choice but to accept that humanity wasn't just a scientific outlier. They were pioneers, unafraid to challenge the impossible. The Zelnath and Vlethan coalitions faced immense political fallout, and their influence in the Senate weakened significantly. Humanity didn't just reignite a star, they ignited a new era of scientific progress and cooperation, one that could no longer ignore Terran ambition and ingenuity. The aftermath of the sabotage rippled through the galaxy like a shockwave. Humanity had not only proven their scientific prowess, but had survived a coordinated effort to destroy it. The Zelnath and Vlethan coalitions were facing severe political backlash. No one wanted to be allied with saboteurs who almost triggered a stellar collapse. The galactic community, once divided over Project Phoenix, now had no choice but to accept its success. And they finally understood. Humanity was no longer just a curious newcomer to the stars. They were a power to be reckoned with. Following the sabotage attempt, the Galactic Senate convened to decide how to manage and regulate stellar engineering moving forward. Ambassador Monroe stood at the center podium, his face calm and resolute. Beside him, Dr. Lydia Kane adjusted her notes, prepared to defend her life's work. The High Speaker called the Assembly to order. Today, we address the future of Project Phoenix and humanity's role in stellar engineering. The recent sabotage has raised grave concerns about the security and stability of such technology. Monroe leaned forward. With respect, Speaker, it wasn't the technology that threatened the star. It was fear. Fear of progress. Fear of losing control. Fear of being left behind. A murmur swept through the chamber, but Monroe didn't let it break his focus. What humanity did with Dralon 7 was not about power or dominance. It was about preservation, saving a system that was lost. Councillor Farsik of the Zelnath hesitated before speaking up. Your technology, it is unprecedented. How can we ensure it is not misused? Monroe turned to Kane, who took the podium. We understand your concerns, Kane said calmly. That's why we are proposing the establishment of a Galactic Stellar Engineering Council, a coalition of scientists and engineers from all major species. They will oversee, regulate, and monitor any future use of the Phoenix Array technology. The chamber seemed stunned. You would share your breakthrough? Asked Councillor Jorak, still clearly rattled from the previous events. Kane smiled. We didn't develop this technology to hoard it. We developed it to preserve life. The High Speaker called for a vote. Establish the Galactic Stellar Engineering Council, GSEC, with shared oversight, 84% in favor. Reject the proposal and ban stellar reignition technology, 16% opposed. The decision was made. Humanity would not only lead the initiative, but would do so with joint oversight and collaboration. It was a new era of scientific unity. As the galactic community accepted the new council, the perception of humanity changed permanently. No longer were they seen as reckless dreamers or arrogant upstarts. They were pioneers, fearless innovators who were willing to take risks to achieve the impossible. Months after the vote, Monroe and Kane stood on the observation deck of the Phoenix Array, watching the reborn star burn bright. Did you ever think we'd make it this far? Monroe asked. Kane laughed, wiping a smudge of grease from her cheek. Honestly, not a chance. They shared a smile, reflecting on the insane journey that brought them here. Monroe's comm device beeped, and he glanced down. "Message from the Senate," he said. "They're sending delegations from 20 different civilizations to learn from us. Looks like they're finally ready to accept that we pulled it off." Kane smirked. Took them long enough. On the far side of the galaxy, a meeting was taking place. The Xelnath and Vlethan remnants had gathered in secret, joined by representatives of other species who feared humanity's growing influence. One of the Xelnath generals spoke with barely concealed anger. "They have secured galactic cooperation. We cannot challenge them directly." An older Vlethan advisor nodded. "If we can't destroy their technology, then we must control the narrative. We need to paint humanity as a threat, one that needs to be contained, not trusted." A shadowed figure from a minor faction spoke up. "There's already doubt among the outer colonies. We'll spread the idea that humans are seeking dominance. Let the galaxy question their motives." A new plan was forming, not to attack humanity outright, but to undermine their reputation. Ambassador Monroe addressed a crowd at United Terran headquarters. "We set out to bring life back to a dead system," he said. "And now the galaxy sees that humanity doesn't just accept loss. We fight back against it." Applause erupted, and Monroe couldn't help but feel a surge of pride and relief. As the crowd dispersed, Monroe turned to Kane. "Think we'll ever get full acceptance from the galaxy?" Kane shrugged. "Does it matter? We proved we can do the impossible. Let them doubt us all they want. Next time they face a dying star, they'll know who to call." Monroe chuckled. "And next time someone tells us something's impossible?" Kane smirked. "We'll prove them wrong all over again." The Galactic Senate no longer laughed at human science. Instead, they watched cautiously, knowing that humanity wasn't just challenging the limits of physics, they were redefining them. And while some feared the implications, others realized a simple truth. When humanity sets their mind to something, no amount of doubt will stop them. And if a star could be reborn, what else might humanity accomplish next?